Local stories, local people. We're taking you inside Western Mass news. It's the Even Better Western Mass podcast with Dave Madsen.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Wherever you are, I hope you're doing well. Well, the focus this week is on Moms Demand Action. This is a grassroots movement of Americans fighting for public safety measures to protect people from gun violence. There are chapters all across the country, including Massachusetts. My guests are three of the group's local members, Doris Madsen, Natasha Mitchell, and Robin Neipp. The three of us talk about the effort to raise awareness locally, including an art exhibit that recently launched online. Ladies, I can't thank you enough for being with me on the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Good to see all of you.
Hi, welcome.
As we can see, it's
Dave.
Natasha, it's a beautiful day. You're the smart one being outside.
I'm enjoying it.
I think for those who may not be aware of Moms Demand Action, let's start with exactly what is Moms Demand Action.
I can answer that for you, Dave. My name's Robin Neipp, and Moms Demand Action is actually the grassroots network of part of every town for gun safety. And it's made up of 6 million supporters and hundreds of thousands of volunteers. And we work to promote safe, we work to promote for new and stronger legislation to make it safer for our families. It actually was started by Shannon Watts after the shooting at the Newtown Elementary School. It was started by a mom, but we invite plenty of dads too.
It sounds like when you talk about this, that really reducing gun violence more than anything else starts in the home.
Well, there are things that you can do to reduce gun violence in your home, that's for sure. You can work on secure storage of any guns that you have, because there are oftentimes unintentional shootings or people have access to guns in moments that they're not making the best judgments. But a big part is legislation and trying to make sure that people that shouldn't have guns don't have access to guns, and especially guns that can cause even more harm because of the way that they fire. So there is a lot of legislative work to do. There's a lot of education work. And the other piece that Moms has really focused in on lately has been city gun violence. And that's where we were able to meet Natasha, and we try to support the community partners that are working hard to reduce the gun violence in the cities. Half of the homicides in this country happen in 127 cities. So,
as we look at this, and I think back to Newtown and other incidents of gun violence across the country, and there just seems to be more and more of it. That right after there's an incident, there's this huge public outcry that yes, we have to do something to bring guns under control, and then it just seems to fade away. It's like the news cycle doesn't pay that attention. After 3 or 4 weeks, it fades away, and then it happens again, and there's this public outcry. So when you talk about legislation, that does make sense, but there seems to be a part of this, and when I talk about doing this in the home, that in some instances there almost seems to be this numbness to this when it happens. What's sadly, and in many instances, I often think that we've just become numb to it, and it's like, all right, well, here's this incident, and we'll talk about it, and I just get so frustrated by legislation because it just doesn't seem possible in the current environment.
Well, can I say something to that? We've heard from Robin. That's great. I don't want to take it away from you, but Moms Network is really effective, and Shannon Watts is one of our huge cheerleaders. That every time we feel like we're down, she encourages us and tells us what great work we're doing. And I don't want it to make it sound like a cult or a club, but we've really been at it, and we don't stop. I mean, we're not as huge as we could be. We are pretty big, but there's volunteers working in so many different capacities, and we have elected, gun sense legislators. We have elected, a gun sense administration. But the division in this country is huge, and we all know it. And, we have saved lives. And we are accomplishing good things, but we really have to keep at it. That's the only thing there is to it. And, we have to, replace those,
Well, I think
those
also,
legislators that, really do no good at all.
Yeah.
I would also like to point out to you, and then I'd like Natasha to speak more to it, but, yes, we all hear about it when there's a mass shooting, and I will agree that it is numbing sometimes, Dave. I mean, but you got to understand that there are people that are living with day-to-day gun violence every day. It's not just the mass shootings. Every day there are people that are shot and killed, or unintentionally take their lives, not unintentionally, I'm sorry, or hurt someone else or themselves with guns. So Natasha is part of Potter's Wheel in Springfield, and I think that she could talk a little bit about the day-to-day violence that she has experienced. Is that okay, Natasha?
That is fine. And so I would start here. So Dave, I do agree that education starts around that table. That dinner table is important, right? But a lot of times, because of the whole system, the system of supremacy that has happened in our society, not everyone has that table to have that discussion. And not everyone has that leadership to help them, support them through this journey. So when we talk about violence, first of all, violence usually happens around 5 miles around our home. So if you're living in a major city, as Robin said, and your area is a lot more confined with a lot more buildings and a lot more people, you're obviously going to have a higher increase of violence. But not that it's not happening in our communities throughout Western Mass, not just Springfield. But as it's happening, we're not discussing it enough. We're not bringing it to the forefront that gun violence is something that is deeper rooted in our culture, and in our culture as a systemic racist problem. You know what I mean? So one part of that, when I met moms, we were at a healing circle at ROCA. And ROCA runs healing circles that you can work together to collaborate together. That's the key. Right? We're bringing people from all over Western Mass to say, let's work together to stop this violence. But if we're just only isolating these incidents to just, you take care of it because it's your people, it's not going to change. Right? And we are working together on the forefront and on the back front. So there's things being planned for the future, but there's things currently happening now. And I think the other thing is, I would highlight, my husband lost 16 of his close friends to gun violence. 16, born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. That's hard. So that trauma, that trauma that impacts not only himself but the families is immense. And so how are we working to help with mental health as well in our community, right? So we're not having this cycle, this constant cycle. And Robin started about people taking their own lives. And we're trying to prevent that cycle from happening, because sometimes some of these things are even pressing you to make unhealthy decisions for you and your community.
Sure. And I would think, too, that a lot of this is there's such easy access to guns that many of these people who are using guns aren't getting them through the legal method. So they wouldn't be registered and you wouldn't know about them.
No.
There's some legislation. And, in Springfield, Natasha and I have had this discussion every time we have a coalition meeting that now we've put together with a lot of community groups that are working on gun violence in Springfield. And Dave, there are so many. New North End Citizens Council, ROCA, Potter's Wheel, just to name a few, Springfield Campaign Nonviolence. But I wring my head at how a 14-year-old gets a hold of a gun. And I have learned some more stuff about that, but there are many illegal guns. And one of the laws now in Massachusetts that we're trying to encourage the legislative body to pass is on ghost guns. We can pass laws. Yeah, that's not going to solve the whole problem, but at least it's, it puts discussion out there. Massachusetts has great gun laws, but the states surrounding us, not good. Not good at all.
And I want to add to that, as we're working on this coalition, DPH has given out a grant for gun violence prevention throughout the whole state. So as Robin mentioned, it's MLK, New North Citizen Council, ROCA, BHN. Many other agencies are working together to make sure that we're really pouring money and time into our young people. Because, when we look at the demographics of who's dying, it's usually young men under the age of 35. So we're trying to prevent that. And so how we can prevent that, it's called a healthcare crisis. The healthcare crisis is the gun violence, and starting to fight that from a legislative way as well as a financial way. So how we get these guns off the street is that we have to make that the guns are not appealing, because we're giving opportunities to our community. That having to protect yourself from walking home from school, it's funny, my husband and I were doing a training, and we're consultants through Pottersville Community Services. And a young man said, how do I not have this gun? I have to protect my younger brother and my younger sister when we walk home. Well, did we think about that? So we don't think about the protection side of it. We only think about the violent side of it, right? It's wrong for him to have the gun, but he's thinking about, I need to take care of my family. And so how do we build a system that he doesn't feel unsafe? And then we were speaking to someone in a suburban area that had other issues, and why are you doing it? Well, I didn't have any food in my house. Wow, you didn't eat, so I stole from this person. It's the suburbs, but we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the stuff that's starting at home, like Dave asked. Those are the things that are also impacting our young people.
When you're talking about that, as far as, yes, I have to have a gun because I have to protect my family, the whole idea that you need a gun to protect your family. And I said, if living in the suburbs, we may be, that may not seem like an issue to us, but my guess is in the inner city, it should be an issue. And again, as you talked about, Natasha, the fact that the systemic racism, but we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on racism. And again, that all goes back to, is it the system that's broken, or is it us who are broken?
Thank you, Dick. That's awesome, because how I look at it is we all live in this water called white supremacy. It's a big white supremacist water, and we're all the little boats in it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to rattle the boats, right? They don't want to rattle the water. They don't want their boats to be rattled. But how we get rid of it is we have to drain the water. We have to change what we are. So it is actually two-dimensional. It's us having this conversation, right? We have to talk about it. And then how do we change it? We started institutionally. We started in our families. We started systemically, so that we're draining this water and putting in healthy water for all our young people, all our people, because the mass shootings are impacting everyone as well. So, I think you're right. It is systemic. It is racism at its finest, because now it's taking young men out of this place that they don't even have an opportunity to change. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at it from the root. And that's true. We need to change the water that we're all swimming in and living in.
One of my things, Dave, is like when I got involved with moms is for years, my mind has been blown at, a young man will get shot in Springfield. It goes unsolved. I think currently there's 9. I don't know if you've heard about more Mothers Overlooked Reaching Empowerment. It's a group that Juanita Batchelder started. She was going to be here today. But if those same 9 shootings had happened in Greenfield, Massachusetts, I live right up the road from there in Leiden, I do not believe they would remain unsolved, Dave. I feel like it's we as Upper Valley people need to recognize that 30 miles away, it's a different world, and we need to be part of that. We can help that. We can change it. It's not easy. I mean, walking down into Springfield, when I first met Natasha, it was at that healing circle. I mean, it was probably the first time in years I had driven to Springfield and parked there by myself. And there was some fear. I'm not as frightened in Springfield anymore. It's learning to reach out and being comfortable, and having people like Natasha and Juanita that also welcome us as I stumble along, to try to learn, because I got to tell you, as far as systemic racism, I don't know, I'm 67 years old. Where have I been?
And Robin came to the table to say, I want to learn. And that's the beginning, right? Dave, that's the beginning. That's how we have to start. We have to say, can I join this table and then say, I want to rebuild this table.
Yeah.
This table is not healthy for any of us, because it's impacting all of us economically, socially, emotionally, and generationally impacting all of us.
You know, and when we talk about things, there's a part of me, and I could be completely wrong with this, but I look at the video game world and kids from the earliest of age playing video games, in many instances, very violent video games that involve shootings and guns, that the line between reality and those video games has gotten really, really blurred. So in some ways, we've lost the value of human life.
Studies show that those video games really, people study them all the time, and I can't quote them to you now, but there have been studies done, and they're really not impactful. But if you think back, Dave, I'm not sure how old you are, but do you ever watch the old Westerns? We are a gun culture.
Yeah.
We are the old Westerns. I mean, think about it. They were shooting people if they looked at them the wrong way on TV, and that's what we were brought up on. And so I'm not, studies don't bear that out, but as a mom, I did try to limit those things for my children, but they played them, they did. So, and I played cops and robbers and Indians and cowboys, and I played combat growing up, for God's sakes. You know?
It was just part of what we did. Well, let's talk about where do we go from here? You're grassroots, and you've started an effort. So what are the next steps?
Natasha, do you want to talk about the coalition piece?
Yes. So, and then Robin, you can jump in. So one of the next steps is that there's a coalition, Nonviolent Springfield, that it gives you an opportunity, citizens and community agencies, whoever you may be, to come and collaborate together. And it's really a two-pronged thing, working with the police and trying to get us to a place where we're working on looking at how can we build a community healthier for all, right? And then the other part is, and maybe three, because legislation, we invite leaders in our community, political leaders as well, to join us to speak about what they're doing to mitigate this gun violence situation and put policy in. And then the last part is coming together as standing out. Like, we have to do community mobilization. You got to mobilize to make change. We have to be on these streets. So you heard Robin, she came to Springfield to have this healing circle, to join this healing circle. She didn't wait for the healing circle to come to her. So when we're doing community mobilization, when there's things out here to bring us together, show up and show up strong to help and support. So we have things that are happening constantly. A few things happening this weekend, a few things happening in the future. And we always have these things posted through Moms, through More, through ROCA, through BHN, so many different things that are happening. MLK, New North Citizen Council. So please stay informed and stay involved.
We can talk about the arts festival itself and as part of this.
The virtual art show, we've had a little bit of difficulty, but I'm getting texts right here as I sit that it's almost ready to go live when I get off. But I have over 50 artists from around the country that submitted to the show, including about I think 17 survivors. And I really didn't sit back and wait for them to come to me after I put a call out. I mean, I really went and asked people that I found on a lot Instagram. I know a lot of artists, so a lot of those within my circle have contributed too. And it's been an amazing learning experience. And there's such a range of art, there's such a range of voices. It's so many people coming together and taking a stand through their art. And almost from the beginning, I started feeling that this is what we need to do. And Robin and Natasha and Juanita and all our partners they're doing the same thing. They're acting they're acting and creating hope. And, the artists have been so grateful that I am doing this. So the website will be available for everyone. It will definitely be up through September, and maybe even longer, unless another show replaces it. And I hung a window display yesterday on Cottage Street. And we're making a movie, of the art. So putting it all together, the movie is going to be about 25 minutes, with music and text and words. And I think it's going to show hope. I mean, it shows a lot of despair. There's people who have experienced despair, trauma, misery, hurt, and have had a hard time getting out of it. But the movie will show that people are taking action, and that's all, that's all we can do. And we can continue talking to, our friends and neighbors and partners in Springfield. And it's a learning experience. Yes, like Robin says, we had to go to them. We in our primarily, white communities had to go to Springfield to do this. And one of the programs that Robin and I are trying to organize for the fall is bringing the voices from Springfield to East Hampton. It probably will be a Zoom. We've learned a lot through Zoom, and Zoom is pretty effective. A lot of people can attend Zoom, but showing to people what they can do, what they can do to help these communities, because it's not like they're the people in Springfield, are another world. They're our world. They're important to us.
Yeah.
Dave.
And
I'm sorry. That's
okay.
I just wanted to say, you talked about being numb. Part of the thing is Stephanie Strand, who's one of our moms and a budding filmmaker, I might say, has been interviewing and filming some of the victims' families that work with with Juanita. And it's pretty powerful. We could send you the videos. But, it's important to put a face to everyone. You see something on the news, and isn't it really, when you get like the People magazine and you see the names of all the victims, and then you see the little blurb that they do, it's very personal. And I think every single one of us, if you just think a little bit past not even 6 degrees, that you probably have been affected by gun violence in your family. Someone that was shot, either took their own life, was accidentally hurt. I mean, all of us really have been affected by gun violence in some way or another, even just by watching the news. But you put those faces with those videos that Stephanie has made, and they're pretty powerful. I think, did Brian do one, Natasha?
No, he didn't.
Oh, okay.
But you're thinking, you talk about the people who are left behind. They are victims too.
Yes,
They are
are.
Of course.
And the trauma of it is so impacting, like as I mentioned before, right? It's a cycle, and we want to break that cycle, cycle of pain, cycle of despair. And more importantly, we want to come together. I think Doris said it best. We're all one community. And that's the problem. We don't want to be divided. We want to be inclusive of everyone throughout Western Mass and loving each other. The key of this is to love and give the best we can to each other.
Natasha, one of the things you talked about was working with police. How difficult does this gap now and lack of trust that many people have for police, how difficult does it make to be able to do what you do with moms demanding action?
Well, I think that overall, we always start off that there's awesome police officers, right?
Sure.
There's awesome everyone. And then there's people that are a little bit more reserved. Awesome citizens that have great relationship with police officers. But overall, we want to change. We want to change that it's more of an intimate relationship, that you can feel that there's not this major gap of understanding. And through that, one of the things we're fighting for is change and retraining of our police officers, and really reflecting of where is the issue. Why is people not comfortable? Why are these crimes not being solved? Why is there this divide? So then let's get together. Let's solve this, because it's solvable, right? It's not something that can't be done, because as much as we're saying we need them solved, I would hope that the police officer want them solved, right? So I think that we're asking them to come to the table, and that's where we're at. You'll hear myself, Stephanie, Robin, and Juanita, and many others, Chris from Roca, saying, hey, let's get to this table so we can solve this issue and this divide. So that's where we're at. We're asking people to come to the table.
This isn't new, Dave. Yeah. People they've been working at this for 10 years. You know, Moms is relatively new down there. We kind of walked in a couple of years ago, but to try to assist and support community partners. But, you know, you go to New North End Citizens Council, that's been around for years. And Roca's been around for years. Roca's an amazing program. They never give up, Dave. They never give up. And that's the piece. And they need money. They need money. They need resources. They don't need any new courthouses, as one of the moms said. You know, we need a school that has heat. We need a school that has all the supplies and all the teachers that, you know, make a difference. And it is going to come down to money. Seriously, the money needs to be pumped in. You need to change. You got to change the environment. You got to give. You got to.
Changing the environment, changing attitudes. Yeah.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, and this is the impacts of redlining, right? So when we talk about money, we talk about what schools get the most money. Obviously, when redlining was established, it was established to keep the poor, and the poor was the people of color, and keep the white rich and richer, and then better school systems. So it's also us fighting against redlining and being knowledgeable about what it has done to our young people. You know, you've gotten less because of where you live, not because of any other reason, but because of where you live, you have less.
I mean, how can you explain the educational differences between Longmeadow and Springfield? How can you explain that?
Yeah, well, my son is at SciTech in Springfield, so I hear of it and I'm very aware of it. There's a huge gap. And, but you know, I look at that.
But they're
that
fighting.
Also
I want to, sorry, Dave, I do want to say my daughter graduated from Springfield Renaissance School, and she's amazing and she's doing well, college, second year, and a 3.9. And so with that, the parents, I think it goes back to what Dave said. We as the parents that are supporting our children in the Springfield Public Schools have fought to also do that too. And our children are next to none on the top of the line, you know, so, but we want it better.
Mm-hmm.
What always has worried me too, and I see it in schools, is the whole idea of the testing system too. I know I'm kind of branching off here, but setting standards for children, almost setting them up to fail. Say, no, you have to pass the same kind of test that they're passing in other cities or other communities where it's different. And it's just, I could never understand that, but that's a discussion for another day, I think.
Yeah, that's deep hole there, Dave.
I don't want to drive us.
Working on that. I met some women I was at the last Prison to Pipeline webinar.
Yes.
Roca did. And the educators in Springfield, and they recognize that they've been working years on that. So I feel like we're kind of late to the table, but hey, we're here.
I know the educators in Springfield are frustrated by that, but you know, I look at this, and the whole thing is just to keeping awareness out there, keeping the discussion going. But I also understand too that coming to the realization that gun violence could happen to us, to any of us, at any time, no matter where we are.
Yep.
Exactly.
And isn't it happening?
Right.
It's happening. Yep. Yep.
You know,
and it's happening. And I think that's the scary part about us now as Americans. We have to second guess when we walk into a store, or when we go for even a walk, or, you know, we're driving in a car, you know, and we beep at someone. I know I'm pausing. Like at a time that I might have beeped somebody if I saw them on their phone and they're sitting at a green light. Now I just wait until they pay attention to the light, because you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what worries me the most about something like that. You don't know. I have another son in Florida, and, you know, and it's the same thing down there in the inner cities down there where, you know, I know guns are prevalent here, but even more so down there, it's almost a way of life.
Yeah. Everybody's carrying.
Yeah.
Like, what does that say about our society that we feel like we need to carry a gun into Walmart or into down, you know, to go out to dinner? It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's, that's needs to be addressed also. But we have made changes. I mean, look at Georgia. That's all I can say. Look at Georgia.
It's slowly but surely. And I think that, one of the things people are speaking about, taking away my rights, it's not the guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. So it's, if you're properly trained and you have all legal rights and whatever, you have a choice, because we are Americans. Mm-hmm. I definitely 100% believe as Americans, you have your rights, but when we are not healthy, we need to reevaluate what we're allowing to happen in our communities. And
I like what you said. This is a health problem. This is a health issue. Yeah.
This is a health issue.
Which brings you to legislation. I mean, we're waiting, we're sitting on making mandatory background checks for all gun sales, which, 85% of Americans all agree with, but we just can't get it over the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Over the hump on it.
The hump. We just can't get
over the hump.
And, and we're not taking guns away from people that we're looking at them saying, we want to make sure that people that shouldn't have guns don't have guns. That's all we're asking, and it's not everybody with mental illness. It's people that are deemed unsafe to have a gun because of other issues, anger, hostility, hate crimes, anything. But you just want to try to make sure domestic abusers, and if you are going to have a gun, you should know how to handle it. You should have had to fire it. You should have some training. You should have a permit.
That also calls for the need of a national registry, not just state by state.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's so much. It's so.
Yeah. But it's all
so
about
much
safer
larger.
families. Yeah, but it's but the ultimate goal is to make it safer for families in America, for my grandchildren, for Natasha's children, for Doris's grandchildren, and I'm thinking there's some there, Dave.
Yeah, there are. Yes.
And that's ultimately, and that's how you start the conversation. We can all agree that we want it to make it safer. And there are known things. We had the assault, God forbid I go to the assault weapon ban, but it was in effect and it did make it safer,
All right. I hate to say that we are running out of time. If moms or dads or anyone is interested in Moms Demand Action, how do they get involved?
Just go to www.momsdemandaction.org.
And Doris, about the art show, how do people get involved in that?
Go to easthamptoncityarts.com, and the art show, the virtual art show, is on their website. I keep remembering more that I have to put on that website, but go to that website. Or you can actually text 64433 to moms and text join to 64433.
All right.
So easthamptoncityarts.com, and keep an eye out.
Thank you all. It's been a good discussion, a discussion I think that we continue for a long time because there's so many things to talk about. I can't thank you all enough. My thanks to Natasha Mitchell, Doris Madsen, and Robin Neipp for being my guests on this week's Even Better Western Mass podcast. Now, for more information about Moms Demand Action, you can visit momsdemandaction.org. And to learn more about Wear Orange, an art exhibit, you can go to the East Hampton City Arts website. It's easthamptoncityarts.com. I'm Dave Madsen. Thanks for joining us for this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Wherever you are, stay well, stay safe, and if you can, join us next week.